This is going to be a very quick video about how to finish up your Vincent van Gogh painting. Now the first thing that you need to do is check and make sure that you have all of your secondary colors. That's part of your grade for this project. So I have orange, green, and violet. If you're missing one of those colors, that needs to be the first thing that you make. Now, I also have some hills that aren't painted in. It's really important that you do all of your big areas first before you do little details like flowers. So I need to really fill in this big white area so that it doesn't look like I'm unfinished. And since this area is so big, I'm just going to dip my big brush right into the big cup of paint and put it on my paper. I'm not going to mix this color on a paint palette because it's really kind of hard to mix colors for large areas on a paper plate. It's not impossible, but I like to do things the easy way sometimes, and I think that this way is easier. All right, I'm going to clean my brush, dry it off, and mix in my second color, which I've decided is going to be blue, because I think I needed a little bit of green down here. I had green up at the top, but not at the bottom, so I think this will kind of balance out my picture. If your colors dry out, you might need a little water. I love using water to help me blend. It makes such a difference. There we go. Nice smooth brush strokes. I think that looks pretty good. Let's fill in that little white area. Okay. So now that all of my large areas are done, I can work on some smaller details, like putting flowers on my hills. Now, to do the smaller things, I can use a plate. And to make my flower colors, I'm going to create something called a tint. A tint is when you add white to a color to make it lighter. So I already have some white on my paint palette, and I'm going to try mixing white with a different color, like red. And what's going to happen is it's going to make a lighter version of red. In this case, we often call this color pink. I wanted to talk to you about tints today because tints are really good choices for flower colors. A lot of flowers in nature are the very light pastel type of colors, so it's perfect to mix tints for this project. Now, after I have my color ready to go, I'm going to think about whether my flowers are in the foreground or in the background. In the background, they're going to be small, but in the foreground, they're going to be larger. So maybe these flowers down here, you can actually see all the separate petals. Wow, that flower is really up close, so it looks pretty cool. Let's get a little more paint and do one more. I'm just sort of pressing my brush down to create petals. I'm not even like moving my brush, I'm just kind of stamping it. Oh, it's kind of awesome. Now if my flowers are far away, get some more tint. These are going to be tinier. So instead of seeing every petal, you might just see a little dot for a flower. And think about how flowers grow in nature. They kind of like to grow in little clumps. They don't usually grow in perfectly spaced out patterns. They're a lot more random. Different sizes, kind of scattered around. Now I don't have to use all the same color tint. I could make a tint of purple or a tint of blue, a tint of yellow. You could add white to any color to turn it into a flower color. I might even take a little bit of yellow. Might make that into a tint just a little bit. Kind of a lemon yellow now. Maybe I want to use that for the center of these close-up flowers. That's a lot of detail. Now you can add as many flowers to your hills as you like, leaves, plants, whatever, but just make sure that you're thinking about if they're in the foreground or if they're in the background, or maybe even if they're in the middle ground somewhere. Sometimes flowers might be kind of medium-sized. You'll have to decide that. You're going to keep on going until you think that your painting has enough details.